Hello and welcome to Real-ationship Talk, the podcast hosted by yours truly, Teresha Young, relationship master coach, where we have open, non-judgmental, heart-to-heart conversations about love, self-love, self-care, dating and relationships. And wow, for this week's episode, I am being joined by the dynamic duo, Karen Gibson and Atiya Chaudhry-Green. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited because this is the first time I'm having a conversation about parenting and relationships. So completely new area, and I know it's going to be so exciting. Now, before we get off on the conversation, I'm just going to do a quick introduction of who you are and what you do. So Karen and Atiya are parent family coaches, known as the dynamic duo, whose mission is to guide parents in unlocking their imagination by learning super smart parenting strategies. Their aim is to revolutionize family dynamics so that families can navigate harmonious relationships, respecting the uniqueness of each individual in the family. The objective is for the family system to understand how each individual's beliefs, values, and behaviours have an impact on each other, so that they can learn strategies to navigate relationships with more ease, flow, and resiliency. Wow, amazing. So I am so curious about the dynamic duo and what led you both to doing what you do now.
Well, Atiya and I were both in, Atiya and I were both in a program on mental fitness, and then we reached out to each other because we were both parent and family coaches, and the dynamic duo was born.
Brilliant. And just for a bit of a background, I think it'll be really useful for the listeners to know. It's a bit more about you as an individual as well, and just a bit more personal information about you and what led you really to doing what you're doing.
Well, I am a mom of two adult daughters, 21 and 27. So I've made every parenting mistake. I've also been an educator and private tutor for over nearly 30 years. So I think having these conversations, similar conversations and challenges with parents and children, I think recently the mental health issues have risen because there's so much stress, and the family dynamics have led to, a lot of just conflicts and like, what do we do? Because, you just maybe speak a different love language, learning language. And this is why Atiya and I both, we both have the same belief system and the mission to really guide and support parents. So that's how that came, my business, Brain Builders.
Yes.
Established in 1999, was a private tutoring business. And so I've had kids share their worries and fears as well as parents. And then in 2020, shortly before the pandemic, I published Mama's Gotta Let Go, How to Let Go Without Losing Your Sanity, even though we all will lose our sanity at one time or another. Yeah. And then 100 Parenting Tips Inspired by the Pandemic was a second book. But I think I'm here, my mission is to really revolutionize parenting as well and just guide parents, because it does not have to be a roller coaster journey filled with, it's like that terror and fear. It does not have to be that way.
That'll be so comforting for so many people to hear, especially for people who aren't parents yet too. And they're thinking, what is that journey going to look like? So that's a great mission that you have there, Karen. How about you, Atiya?
Yeah, so I come from a different lens. So I'm married, but I don't have any children. But the passion I've got is around the fact that what happened to me as a child, and through neuro-linguistic programming, which I'm a master coach in now, just like Karen, understanding that some of my behavior as an adult was born out of what happened to me as a child. And it limited me in one of my skills, and the several skills that probably limited me. And I thought, oh, wow, I'm not living into who I am, my full potential. And through that, the strategies I learned on the NLP course, I was a different person as an adult, because I'd released all this negative stories and things that happened to me as a child. So my passion comes from writing super smart stories for children that helps them to reframe that negative experience at the time when it happens. And alongside that, I'm a visual visual facilitator and trainer and thinker. And my mentor at the time said, "Oh, Tia, you know, when you do that, you're going to have to, it'd be really good to upskill parents with some of these skills around, you know, reframing negative experiences. And part of it is also about, you know, as parents, how can you make an even deeper connection with your child so the child feels safe and opens up to you?" And just like Karen mentioned, you know, with the mental health, rise in mental health, you know, children keep things away from parents, or, you know, as a parent, intuitively, you'll think something's not quite right. And you say, "Hey, honey, how are you?" And they'll say, "I'm fine." And you have no clue until something later on down the line happens that we don't want to happen. And so my passion comes from the perspective that, you know, mental health is on the rise. How can parents, you know, use deep connection strategies around breathwork, mirroring, and language patterns? Karen talks about love languages, similar sort of thing. How can we use those deeper strategies so that the child's brain feels safe? One of the things that Karen and I both have done is learn strategies on brain and how that works. And actually, the main thing about the brain is we need to support the brain feeling safe and secure in order for them, in order for the individual to open up to us. And that's part of what I teach in terms of the supporting the parents. So the skill sets that Karen has and the skill sets that I have blend beautifully together in terms of our individual passions that relate with supporting parents and supporting revolutionising family dynamics. And just a little bit, I'm a nurse by background, worked in the UK Health Service for about 20-30 years before I retired, and now my passion's this. But I've been doing it for over 20 years, coaching and supporting parents and children actually as well, my nieces and nephews and people around how to unlock their own imaginations and creativity and support living into their uniqueness.
Yeah, that word uniqueness as well. And just for clarity as well, is this a global business that you have?
Absolutely. Yeah, as you know, because things have gone online now, we've got people from all over the world, haven't we, Karen, in our Facebook group, where we've got people from all over the world in that group. So yeah, it is international.
Okay.
And just to let you know, Karen's from Hawaii, aren't you, Karen? Do you want to say? And I'm from the UK, so yeah.
So Karen. It's Hawaii and UK collaborating together.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I'm so curious about the super smart parenting strategy that you use. So it almost feels like you might have been kind of alluding to some of the things that you do within the work that you do. But I know that for the audience, they're going to be so curious to know what exactly is super smart parenting and what do these strategies involve?
So I'll just start by talking about the name super smart strategies, because every parent has an intuitive ability, knows their child well. So intuitively, inherently, they're smart. Yeah. And the super smart comes with, over the years, knowing that brain science, neuroscience changes, knowing that we can develop mindset, knowing that we can develop, you know, things like technology and AI coming on scene. How can we support that? So the super smart parenting strategies are around how can we unlock more of our own imaginations as parents to support us to be super smart, and how can we learn the latest things that are going on, evidence-based strategies that we can learn through Karen and myself. And we do the WOW sessions on our Facebook group every week, which it stands for Wednesday, Oh, I Can Do This Wisdom. So we give them a nugget and a tip to apply in practice. Okay. So that's where the sort of super smart parenting comes from. So Karen, do you want to share a bit more about, you know, some of the things? Is that what you wanted to know, Teresha?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I love how we provide exercises that can be done at the moment. You know, so if they're stressed, we share like this havening technique, and it just takes, I can just do it right now. It takes 3 seconds, and all you're doing is doing this. You want to try it, Teresha? And you're just touching all the way through to your wrist. And you do that 3 times, and it literally pauses the brain when you're stressed. And you ask yourself, you know, what are 3 things that you see around you? And then, you know, it's amazing how once I use this with as young as, you know, 6-year-old children. through teens, and sometimes if they know specific tools to reduce stress so that they don't react. My whole thing is about emotional regulation too, and then practicing, love languages and really learning how to connect. Because if we don't connect in any relationship, then disconnect often is the cause, right? Of
Yeah.
just people who aren't getting along, and that can lead to a lot of dysfunction.
And what we're passionate about is, as parents, being playful. So some of the things that Karen mentioned, although we're talking about children, actually we're also talking about the adults themselves in terms of the relationship between husband and wife, in terms of parents. And that's where one of our wow sessions, we were talking about, how, again, the love languages things, how we can have a different way that we like to receive information and respond in a particular way, but it's not necessarily the way that the other partner likes to receive it. And then we were talking about how, things trigger us around something related to the child, and we think differently about it. It's just taking a pause, taking a step back, and then using what we call the pulse emotion meter, which is around, just being playful and saying, oh, I'm feeling ruffled about what you've just said, ruffled red, or I'm feeling red today, or I'm feeling ambivalent. So, whatever the husband and wife situation is, the wife might be feeling, oh, I'm not sure whether I like what he said or not said, but they could just use the word yellow. And so the other parent knows what's going on emotionally. And, grateful green, because one of the things in relationships is we don't really talk about what's going well. It's always about the challenges,
Yes.
in terms of between parents, in terms of relationships. So, yeah.
And is there an ideal time really for couples to sit down and go through the pulse emotion meter? Would you say, is it a wrap up at the end of the day? How do we do? Like, it's almost like a rag score, isn't it? You've got the red, amber, and greens. Like, do you have that daily assessment? How does it work?
So, yeah. So what we want to do is share the tool, and then we ask the parents to apply it however they want to apply it. We give some suggestions. So one of the things we talked about was a check-in. It could be at the end of the day, it could be the start of the day, or it could be a weekly check-in. And one of the things we sort of guide them to do is actually do it out of the home if they can. So if they have husband and wife time, alone time, away from the house, and somebody else is babysitting the kids, is if they can do it out in the open or nature, how they can dissipate some of that emotional stuff, and they don't leave the stuff in the house. There's something about the environment when we discuss things, and how you can leave a mark in a physical environment that triggers you. So there's something about, whether it's the back garden, if you can't get away from anywhere else, sit on the back garden on chairs or whatever. But there's something about, the family system. Every family system is different. Karen, do you want to talk about the family system in terms of every family system is different? So it's really them coming up with the solution.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the parents are so grateful that we provide tools. And because there's different family dynamics, there's different love languages, they're also dealing with different inner childs, right? Their childhood, the way they were parented, also affects their adult relationship. So knowing when to use it and giving them ideas, because sometimes I always suggest, even in the midst of the crisis someone is about to act out, if you are aware, and I have some kids, oh, I'm yellow, meaning, okay, mom or dad, I might be on that cusp of a meltdown. And all of a sudden, it's amazing when there's awareness. You can access peace quicker rather than do the lecturing or, just react, right? When react, sometimes kind of it can mess things up.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a difference between reacting and responding, isn't there? So
Definitely.
there's a difference between the two. And I like what you're saying there in terms of, firstly, Atiya, taking the conversation away from the family home, because when you spoke earlier about that whole safety, the home is almost meant to be a place of safety. And sometimes if we're going to have these challenging conversations, for example, it might be a great idea to remove it from the safety net of the home sometimes, so that when you come back home, you're back to that element of safety, that safeness that you might feel at home. So I absolutely love that tip that you gave there too. And what you were saying there, Karen, as well, it's just about the whole emotional side of it and understanding the language, which is really important. And you spoke about our different experiences, our different inner childs. Would you say there are, or what obstacles would you say, or objections or any fears show up for the parents when introducing these strategies?
Should I take that, Atiya?
Yeah, do you want to start and then I can add? Yeah.
Yes. Well, the parents often share with me that the only way they know how to parent, how to deal with conflict, or even just communication on a daily basis is how they were treated. So the challenge is getting out of that, anything that doesn't serve them, and rewiring their brain so that they are aware of what changes are needed so that they have healthier communication. So Atiya, yeah, share more about how parents can, handle these conflicts, because it is a challenge, right? When you think or you react, that's the thing. So how do we become aware and respond instead?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in relation to the pulsometer, Teresha, you were talking about how do people feel about it, or how do parents respond. There's something about providing the choice for them to use it, opening up their awareness around using the red, amber, green, and allowing them to come up with their own solutions. So the fact that it's a simple tool, the red, amber, green, doesn't make it a difficult tool to use. And alongside it, there are supplementary questions to support the parents. So when they come on our programs, when we do one-on-one coaching with them, part of it is, the ruffled red, for example, is one, the person that's feeling ruffled red, let's say it's the husband, for example, says, oh, I'm feeling a bit red about what you just said there. So the mum will be thinking, oh, ruffled. And then it just says, oh, let's take a pause. And let's just say, and allow the husband to think about why he's ruffled. Take a moment, let him process. So it allows time for the individual to process what's going on and just speak openly with their partner about what that ruffled, what's going on for them. Just allowing them to speak and the partner reiterate what the partner's saying, the husband's saying, to so that they feel like they're heard, and they just process. Sometimes it's not about finding solutions, it's more about the openness of the dialogue, because release happens when you allow the person to speak. And then the ambivalent thing, it's the same thing as the yellow, amber for ambivalent. It's about thinking, oh, why am I feeling I'm not sure about this, I'm not sure about that. Where is that coming from? What's going on for you right now? Where do you feel it in your body? What pictures, what stories are you telling yourself about it? So there's supplementary questions. And sometimes there's a guide for those supplementary questions, and there's something about each other, because they know each other better, is trusting their own inner gut and inner intuition around what's going on, and asking the questions of, oh, I'm curious, what did you mean by X?
Yeah.
Are you with me? So it's a means and a tool to allow them to express what's going on for them, to process it as individuals, but process it together as well, which helps the relationship move forward. So one of the things, in our group, that the question was from the parent was, oh, my wife always gives in. She doesn't set boundaries with the child. He wants to say, you can't do this, and then she comes along and allows it to happen. Yes. So in that context, there's something about, and then they go into this vicious, they go into a cycle of him thinking she's always going to do that. So there's something about him rewiring about his brain around, my wife will do something different, but they have to go through this process of having that open dialogue about how it's making them feel.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
A huge thing that I'm noticing there is the power of communication, basically, and how effective that can be when people are in a safe place where they feel that they are seen, heard, and understood. and you've got the prompts in order to help people who might even struggle with communication. It sounds like you've got some great prompts and questions that can help them to explore that. Also, what I loved about what you shared there was going into the body. When you said, no, where do I feel this in my body? Because, of course, Karen, you showed that great technique. And for those who are actually listening to it and not actually seeing the visuals, Karen was rubbing from the shoulders down her arms all the way to her wrists when she was doing that. So a lovely caress of the body. And regulating ourselves, the nervous system through the body, is so powerful. And when you were talking about boundaries too, now, I know you talk to people and it's completely unique for each family dynamic. Are there any common boundaries, however, that you feel parents could benefit from setting when it comes to their parenting, and even boundaries with themselves as a couple?
I think many parents put the child's well-being first, and they forget that the ultimate, it needs to be mom and dad or partner together on the same page, communicating effectively. So everyone does feel, like you said, Teresha, like heard, understood, and mostly not judged. Yes. Boundaries start to get blurred if sometimes you say, we are going to, and you give the consequence. Maybe it's for 5 days. And after the third day, behavior is improving. So it's a natural human, right?
Yeah.
Action to just say, you know what? Okay, we'll stop that. And children have told me it's confusing because I was supposed to not have privileges to my video games for 5 days, but after 3 days, and I asked them, what message is that send? And they said, sends confusion because I'm not sure. But what's important and interesting is that all kids crave boundaries. Kids who get everything, they always tell me, I get everything I want, and I think it's important. I might not like it, but it's really important to have boundaries. And that just shocked me coming from a 7-year-old. Usually it's like, yes, I get my way, but they realize that it's not very healthy to always get your way.
That's great in terms of setting boundaries. And I can understand why some parents might not feel very comfortable, especially like what you were sharing before, is in that a child might go to one parent and get their way and then go to another parent and they're a bit more disciplined when it comes to the approach that you take there. So, Atiya, when you spoke earlier, you talk about some of the things that might ruffle a couple. And I'm not sure who wants to kind of elaborate on this. Would you say that some of the things that ruffle parents are the children's behavior, or is it more about the couples? Do you find that there tends to be more of a dynamic of who is ruffling the person?
I think it's both, because there's something about how strong are you as a couple and how well do you know each other in terms of, what your values are, what your beliefs are. And then the other side is, how are you parented? Because there's an unconscious parenting behavior that goes on. So, for example, one parent was treated by his father, where the father didn't really, his father wasn't interested in his studies. And didn't promote, didn't support him by saying, I want you to do well in this, or didn't guide him to do particular studies in education. And the reason, when you explore it, is because his father's father, if that makes sense, told his father, was so into him getting the excellent grades, sent him to piano lessons, sent him to this lesson, that lesson, and always wanted him to do well, that father parented by letting his son do whatever he wanted. Yeah. And so there's something about, if you're parented in a certain way, you'll take some good qualities with you as an adult, and you demonstrate that parenting with your children. And there's some parenting that happens with you as the father or the mother that is negative. And so you don't want to do that with your child. And then there's something about it being, what's the word I'm looking for? It's you overcompensate. You either do something really, really well, or you do something really, really and there's always a balance in life of what you need to be doing. And so so in terms of the ruffled red, there's something when you talk about the triggers, is it coming from how you were parented in a relationship and dialogue that you're having with your partner, or is it something that your child's exhibiting that's triggered you from your past, or you have a boundary around, this is the way I want my child to be, and he's not doing that, and that's triggering the ruffle thing. So it depends is the quick answer. And it depends on what's going on, but it could be triggered by both at the end of the day.
That makes a lot of sense, because when I'm working with my clients, for example, often what they are, quote unquote, upset about isn't really what they are truly upset about. And it is something from the past that has activated them, that has triggered them. So it's doing that work. And what I'm learning here is that, there is still a lot of work. Yes, you might play the role of a parent, but equally there is some inner work to be exploring at the same time. It's deep work, isn't it? It's not just necessarily surface level work, because of course we've got a role to fulfill, to look after our children, to nurture them, take care of them, raise them. Equally, we're growing and we are evolving as people at that same time. That's really what I'm getting from this too. So when it comes to receiving, because you spoke about languages, love languages, and of course, like when you think about languages and love languages, it's about how you want to receive love as well, not necessarily how you think that person wants to receive it. So have the children said to you how they would like to receive love and treatment from their parents? And is there any sort of common themes that you're seeing?
Well, I think a lot of parents don't realize what their children's love language is, but you can, either give them a quiz that's on lovelanguagesquiz.com, or you can just go by observing. Sometimes a child wants hugs, and then if you give them concrete, like physical gifts, they won't feel loved. Others want words of affirmation. So if you give them a hug, they might just need to hear, wow, good job, or you know what, I really love you. And so that connection really can, be stronger if you use the love language. And most importantly, what is the love language of the parents? Yeah. Because that is if they feel disconnected, it will filter down, right, Atiya, to the family. And that's when the whole family dynamics is at risk.
Yeah. What I talk about in terms of the love language, so there's different parts of love language that we can talk about. And the thing that I teach and really passionate about is the language words that we use, and the fact that the way that we communicate and the way that we process information is through the five senses: the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, which is feeling, through gustatory, which is taste, and olfactory through smell. Now, the three predominant senses we tend to use are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic when we're communicating. And one of the things that I have is a language pattern quiz, which helps the parents identify which language, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, they use all three, but predominantly they have one or two that's more predominant. And so if they're predominantly visual, but they're talking to a child who's more auditory, the child understands what you're saying, but the deep connection doesn't happen quite as well as it could do. And so what I teach is that honing in on the language pattern of your child, the linguistics, what words are they using, and how you connect deeply through visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And that's where, how some children are more connected to their mom rather than the dad. And when you really break it down, it's often the language they use. The love language, i.e. in terms of hug, they're kinesthetic, they like to be touched or whatever. But if they're auditory and you're visual, you'll be going, oh, look, honey, I'd like you to do X. So they use look, which is a visual word. And if he's auditory, you'd want to say, can you hear me? I'd like to talk to you. Hear me, and then talk to you. You're using the auditory words first, which grabs their attention a lot better, and also they're safe words for his brain, his or her brain as well. So a lot more deeper stuff, but anyway, that's some of the things that we also teach.
And that's really powerful, just knowing somebody's way of talking, their preferred thinking style, their preferred language, as you're referring to there. Because on the personal share, my daughter she's 6 years old, but she's currently pre-verbal, so she doesn't express through words. So a lot of our communication is through the other sources of communication. While she receives what I'm saying, it might be through body language. It's the way in which I say something. And there's so much to communication other than the words that we use as well. But like you say, it is the way in which we say. How does that sound for somebody who's auditory? How does that look? For somebody who is kinesthetic, how does that feel to you? It's you're using that language in order to connect. It's super powerful, and sometimes I don't think we realize how powerful it is. When we use the language in the way that the person can receive it and say, "Oh yeah, you get me," you truly are getting me. So, of course, now when it comes to some of the parenting dynamics, because you've spoken about the communication strategies, you talk about the great pulse emotions meter there. Are there any other strategies that you share with parents to help them to keep that connection with them as well? Because yes, we want to prioritize the children, but and keep that connection even if you don't have that free moment to be able to get out of the house. How can you nurture a relationship still whilst having children?
Well, I think awareness is the key. I'm working with families and they don't realize that they often react when they see a grade, right? It's really like Atiya always says, take a step back, pause, and really don't define your child by their grades, by their behaviors, by their choices. Because as soon as a child feels criticized or judged, that's when the disconnect starts. But it can be quickly repaired by saying the right words that the child needs to hear, right? They yearn to be accepted. They yearn to be loved without meeting expectations because that is conditional love. And that's a challenge because it's hard for parents not to react if an F is brought home or drastic in their eyes, right? Drastic mistakes are made. So my whole thing right now is teaching to embrace the failure, celebrate mistakes, and teach children that it's okay. Because so many of these kids, as young as 5, they cry when they make a mistake or they feel like it's the end of the world and they don't understand because they're not taught that mistakes are part of life and that we should embrace them and learn from them. It's truly an opportunity to grow, right?
Completely. And when you're talking there, it requires to spend quality time with our children. And in this business of life, of world, of work, we can sometimes neglect that quality time when it comes to children. And obviously that's not intentional, it's just the way that it is. And you can get home and you're back on your laptop or you're on your phone, and it's like having that time and that moment for the children to really nourish the relationships. And when you were talking there, Karen, something came to my mind too, is sometimes I think most of us can have a situation where your parents said something to you and it stuck with you. And it's kind of stuck, and you just think they were doing the best that they could at that time with what they have. However, it's still a comment that you do remember. So, when I'm talking to my clients, when I'm listening to things, it might even be a case of when you fall down and you hurt yourself and your parents say, don't cry, it's okay, and they stop crying. In that moment, we're almost teaching the child to curb your emotion. You might really want to cry. It might really hurt. You've wounded yourself. And then you get praise. Oh, good. You didn't make a big scene. Oh, great. No. So what that's teaching us, what's teaching the child is to almost like curb that emotion and to not really fully express themselves. So it sounds to me like what you're teaching as well is allowing their self-expression of the child to come through, to celebrate and not to judge as well, and to just use language in a very positive way that can encourage the child. And I absolutely love that. I really do. And the key thing also is jumping out at me is spending the time. I mean, do you get any feedback from children? Because I'm not quite sure of the children's ages that you work with, but do you get feedback from from the children saying how they just wish that their parents had spent more time with them?
Oh, whether they're 5 or whether they're 16, all children love to spend time if it's in a safe place, if they feel they won't be judged or criticized. The children who do not want to spend quality time are the ones that don't feel safe that they will be accepted. Not just, physical safety, they might feel safe, but they don't know if they'll be scolded, if they'll be lectured. if they'll feel like they're less than. But yes, they always say, oh, I wish my mommy, I love when she texts me in at night. I love the stories. The teenager might say, I love when we just drive to Walmart. Sometimes it's just a drive, or sometimes it's just that 5 minutes before going to bed. Hey, how was your day? I used to say, what was the best part of your day? And then you learn a lot, when they share that.
Yeah. So would you also say then that means maybe just scheduling in some time during that day to say, this is our time? Does it help a child to know, like, for example, each day, for example, in their mind, I'm going to sit down with mom, with dad, and it's going to be like 15 minutes. I'm really going to connect. Is that a helpful way forward?
Oh, you have to schedule it, right? Yeah, if we don't schedule it, will we do it? And I have kids after tutoring, guess what? We're gonna take a drive to the park, or I get to fly my kite. And you see the genuine joy. And it's such a simple activity. You don't have to go shopping, you don't have to do something major, right, Atiya?
Yeah, and the thing I want to bring in here is you don't have to make special time. There's the activity side of things, and there's something about day-to-day time. So, there's something about when they're eating at the dinner table and you're all there together. That is, in my world, you're bringing in quality time, but it's about what's going on at the dinner table. And this is where practicing the languages, when one child might be auditory, another one's visual, understanding what's going on there. I mean, let me share a story with you. So there's a teacher, very, very intelligent, very forward-thinking teacher who has two children. One's a 9-year-old and one's sort of 12-year-old. Anyway, she was talking about the 9-year-old, how the 9-year-old came home from school, was upset, and the fact that he wanted to have no one listens to me, nobody asks me what I think, my friends don't ask me, my peer group don't ask me. So what did she do? She spoke to his teacher at the, when you have the parents' evening, spoke to the teacher and said, oh, hey, he's feeling XYZ. No one asks him a question. No one he doesn't think he's good, and blah, 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 blah. So what happens is the teacher just says, you're brilliant. You're this, gives him all the positives and stuff. But actually, I said, when she recounted the story, I said, actually, what you're sharing is not what he wanted. What he wants is his peer group to ask him a question, ask for advice, or talk to him, or whatever it is. I said, this is what happens automatically as parents. We want to give them all the praise. As the teacher, you want to give them all the praise. But actually, what he wanted was the interaction with the children in his school group to give him or ask his opinion about whatever in group work and stuff like that, which did happen. But even as a teacher, she didn't realize how she would go into this automatic pilot of wanting him to feel safe and doing all this positive stuff. And one of the things she recognizes is that he would say at the dinner table, you're not listening to me, you're not listening to me. And she recognized, when I talked to her about the language thing, that he was auditory and she was very kinesthetic feeling. So what she did at the dinner table is when she was at the dinner table, she would watch his language. When he said, you're not listening to me, she'd say to the rest of the family, oh, let's listen to. So she used the word, just even by saying, let's listen to, gives him at the dinner table airtime to say exactly and feel like he's being listened to. And part of that was other things that I taught her to do, which was the breath work, because when you mirror somebody eating, your child, you get out of your busy life, mom life, and you're into the zone of the child's life. So there's some subtle things that you can do. So at the dinner table is where everybody comes. Well, I hope everybody eats their dinner at the dinner table as a family. Sometimes you don't, but I would offer that for people that don't, is to sit and use that quality time to make the check-in. And one of Karen's top tips around that was having a basket where you put all your devices, so no one's looking at it, even mom and dad during the dinner, looking at what's going on with work or whatever, and being distracted by that too. So
yeah, that's a fabulous share, Nova, that you said there, in terms of just listening. That one thing is, and you're not listening to me, and actually repeating back the words, let's listen to. because then it demonstrates that you have heard. You're not listening to me, and I'm going to use that same language. And that's really great awareness. And something else that you spoke about there, and I just thought that's a really excellent point, is understanding that you can have multiple children and they're going to be very unique. So the way that you parent one child might have to be slightly different to the way that you parent another child. And do you find that there are some challenges that come up in that area too?
Oh yes, my 21 and 27-year-old totally different. And when they were younger, I thought, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Right? Because you think I'm connecting well with one, and then in your head, you're thinking you're failing with the other.
Yeah.
But it's not until you learn their love language, their learning style, and the way they want to be heard, understood, and not judged. And then it magically falls into place. I mean, just learning how to connect, I think, is the key.
Yeah. And when you're speaking there too, I was just thinking how sometimes we might think it's much more easier to connect with an adult and you have to treat children differently. But from that age, when you can actually really listen to what they're saying and know they still, even at that young age, want to be heard, they want to be seen, they want to be understood, even if you're 5, 4, 3, whatever age it is, it doesn't suddenly happen by magic when they're in adult form. It actually starts from such a young age. And it feels to me,
On that point, Teresha, it starts from the programming of which style of language they like to use. It starts from the age of 7, is when they start really honing in on whether they're visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or what preference they like. And when you said something about, children like to be communicated or listened to, it actually, Teresha, it works for adults too.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I learned that stuff, I started changing my language with my husband. He's kinesthetic and I'm visual.
Yeah.
And so I was talking. So actually, we honed in on our relationship as a couple. I started, when I communicate with him and I want him to do something that I want him to do for me, I use his love language word of kinesthetic words and, hug him or touch him or whatever to have a deeper connection. And actually, it's not just verbal, i.e. when you're communicating one-to-one. Think about when I was in healthcare, when I wanted to connect with consultants and support them in their work, I used to look at their emails and think, oh, he's visual, I'll respond to him in a visual way.
Yes.
So even in the written form, texting or whatever, thinking about, again, the linguistics and what words you're using to make sure you're connecting in the way that they like to receive information, their preference.
Yeah. That actually might be a really great segue into asking a bit more about your personal relationships, if that's completely okay with you, because you spoke about that situation there, which is a great example. And I am curious to know, like, some of the key learnings and experiences that you've had in your romantic relationships, and how you've taken that going forward.
Well, I was divorced. I was with someone for 10 years and then I didn't have any children. So my daughters, oh, was that your last life, your previous life, we call it. And I noticed that I did not make the time to actually learn the love language, to actually connect. And so there were a lot of arguments and I had no idea. Some people are just naturally argumentative. And if you don't use your love language, then it becomes even like harder, right, to find peace. My current husband, just very, very, he doesn't like to argue. And I guess sometimes I didn't realize, wow, I like to argue, maybe debate, have a strong discussion, whatever you call it. And then I'm realizing, wow, my relationship with everyone, whether it's, my husband, my students, my children, it really had to take me to be aware and learn the love languages and practice what I'm doing now. I look back at all the mistakes, and then I think this is why Atiya and I were meant to collaborate, because it's funny how we feed off, each other, and we brainstorm and then come up with ideas new ideas to learn to connect with others. So I think our past relationships do help us, right, evolve to who we are today.
Absolutely. And for you, Atiya.
Yeah, so just remind me of your question specifically, Teresha.
So the question was, what have been some of your key learnings and experiences from your romantic relationships, and how have you used that to move forward?
Yeah, so for me, I was brought up as a typical Muslim Asian girl, so didn't go out very much. And when I went into nursing and when I used to go out and moved away from home, and when I used to go out with the girlfriends, I just noticed that, there were certain types of men that were very forward in looking at, I was an Asian girl that didn't look at men. If somebody was looking at me, I'd be like, I'd turn in my face. There was an inherent cultural thing going on, sort of thing. And then I got to, and I decided, I got to about 30, and I thought to myself, you know what? I knew I didn't want to have an arranged marriage. and so then I thought, well, in order to find somebody in those days, it was like online dating. Not online, it was what was it called? Dateline. It was called. And you went and you wrote to this magazine thing, and then you gave them your details, and then I put my criteria in around what kind of person I wanted, and I went through this sounds really good, 30 men, just going out on a date to decide whether I liked them or not, or whether we had the same value system. So I was at that age, at the age of 30, I was really firm on what were my values, what were my beliefs, what did I want from the other person, the same beliefs, same values, and some different ones, and so I was very clear. So I think my success in, what I'd say in terms of is always being true to yourself about what kind of person you want, and not allowing certain things, if you don't like something about a particular person, then, and you don't think it's going to work, then don't do it, sort of thing. Anyway, so I think finding somebody, but my husband is completely different to me. I mean, obviously, one, he's an Englishman as opposed to I'm Pakistani background, and secondly, he's quite introverted and I'm quite extrovert. So we are different characters, but we have similar beliefs and values, and some not quite, but that's fine too, sort of thing. But it's about having that ongoing dialogue and communication and check-in time to find out what's going on with each other and that kind of thing, which has helped us, I think, to move forward and stuff. And that's where, as a parent, when I look at parenting sort of thing, you've got to really know each other as individuals, really understand your value systems together, and understand, having that understanding of how do you want your children to grow up, and having that unconscious parenting signal in your mind to think, is my parenting. And there's something about, I don't know whether when people get together as couples, whether they openly say, oh, my mum and dad was like this, my mum and dad was like this is the sort of thing I like, this is the, you know what I mean, as part of parenting, having a parenting conversation. Because I think parenting, most people who want to have children, they start and read books, they look at magazines, they ask other people, but have they really had a conversation about their parenting style, where they come from? I don't think so. Or not many, I would say. So yeah.
Absolutely. It almost feels like the parenting research starts when you find out that you've got a child. There's a child in the way, then you get the books, how to be the best dad.
The buns in the oven. You're incubating.
Yeah, exactly. So you're being quite reactive to the situation. But what you're saying there, the proactivity, you can say, so what is our parenting style long before, because then you can sift through any of the differences. Where do our values align, where they don't align? What about our ethics? So that's a really great, point there in terms of have that conversation about it so that you can prepare yourself for it as well. So that's fantastic. And Karen, I wanted to bounce back to something that you said, actually, because you spoke about how there was a difference in communication style between yourself. Now, how did you overcome that situation? How does that work for you now?
Well, I think it started because I was an only child. And so my parents made the mistake. My mom was from Japan. My dad's parents were from the Philippines, and I think they did not know. They had a hard time conceiving. So I think some parents overly try to show the love by giving in. So when I grew up, I wanted to make sure that my daughters knew that the world did not revolve around them. And the joke was, oh yeah, it revolves around mom. But it took me a long, long time, probably when the girls were teenagers, when I realized, because that was just a joke. But when you joke, there's some underlying messages. And so now my girls always say, wow, you would have parented us so differently. And someone asked me, so are they resentful? I said, not at all. They're like, Mom, you're meant to do this. They were
Yeah.
both at a recent parenting workshop. And so I felt, of course, relieved that they didn't think like, wow, why are you like now,
Yeah.
resourceful? But I think we don't learn. We don't learn until we make the mistakes. So I had to practice grace. I had to practice like just forgiving myself and knowing that I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And when you become aware, it's almost like everything falls into place because you know why you shouldn't react. Like, wait a minute, you have a choice every single moment. You're
Yeah.
going to choose peace, or you're going to choose, making sure that you're right, or making sure that the thing that you want done is done your way. And it can
Yeah.
magically fall into place once you set the ego aside and make peace and love a priority.
And when you were talking to Karen, the words, because I'm really keen on this meditation practice, is Ho'oponopono. And
Yes, yes.
yeah. And when you were talking there about the peace and the compassion and the forgiveness, that is such, for me, a great, if you've not heard of it, I'm not going to spell it.
Yeah,
Oh,
There's
Ho'oponopono, yeah.
yeah,
Ho'oponopono, there's many O's and N's in it.
yeah.
I would encourage you to maybe just explore that, because it's a lovely way to send yourself forgiveness and to be thankful for it. There's some words, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And
I
you
love
say
you.
words, I love you, please forgive me, thank you, I'm sorry. And you can say that, and there's so many on YouTube or whatever platform that you look on to do it. It's a lovely practice to tap into there. So that's what came to me when you're talking there, Karen, in that aspect. Also, I would love to know then, from your personal experience as well, what's your personal definition of love in the romantic context?
To me, I think love is a collaborative effort and learning how to connect. I noticed that the times when I was upset, it wasn't necessarily like what it was. I felt a disconnection. I didn't feel personally heard. So now, just a quick short story. Yesterday, I said, "Oh, I hope you surprise me. I'm coming home around 7," and I just
Yeah.
dismissed it. And he goes, "I have a surprise for you." And sometimes I used to think, "Oh," and I wouldn't be grateful, right? Because you have something in my head. And then all of a sudden it was like an amazing dinner. My daughter cooked, everything was laid out, and I thought, wow. So this morning he even said, wow, wasn't that an amazing dinner? I said, it was. I said, magic does happen. And we just laughed. And I think that's what it is, right? Is just
Yeah.
to have that laughter. And I think Atiya and I always do that with whether it's parenting or personal relationships. You have laughter, you have that connection, right? And of course, trust, and you will get through the rough times.
Yeah. The element of fun and laughter, I don't think that can be really underestimated. And thank you for that share, because when I have been speaking to other guests too, and they say about fun, playfulness when it comes to a relationship, and sometimes we can lose that. And you encourage playfulness in the work that you do there, and with the children and the parenting, so you can understand the power of playfulness. So thank you for that. And Atiya, what about your personal definition of love in the romantic context?
So for me, it's what's it for me, it's about respecting them in their world and their beingness. So I'm going to share a story that's very powerful to get your husband to do what you want him to do. And this is what I did. Are you
Yeah,
listening?
we're listening.
So when I did that neuro-linguistic programming course, right, they talk about rapport and they talk about breathing and, mirroring people and all that kind of thing. So I decided to play with it, right? So you go to the cinema and I can be quiet and we're watching the movie, everything's okay. When we're at home, husband and wife, sit on the sofa, he puts the TV on, we're watching a film, and I'm going, what happened there? What went there? And he's going, shut up, let me listen to the program.
Yeah.
And he gets frustrated because I'm just listening to the thing, and then my mind goes off in a wander listening to physics. Anyway, so I thought to myself, right, I'm gonna mirror him, and I'm gonna breathe like him, and we're gonna watch this film. I didn't tell him I was gonna do this. So okay. So he sat on the sofa and he's put the TV on this film that we're going to watch. And so he sat in a particular way. So I sat there and I'm move to sit like him. He hasn't got a clue. And then I watch where he's breathing and his tummy breathing. He's breathing into his tummy. So I'm sort of then breathing at the same rate or slightly off kilter because he's breathing and then I'm watching him. Then I'm breathing. But then eventually I'm in sync. So I'm in sync with his body. I'm in sync with his breathing, how he's breathing. And I'm looking at him, watching the TV, breathing like him, sitting like him. And I thought, as I kept doing this, so I set my intention, right? Well, this is what you have to do. You set your intention, say, I'm curious to know what is it like in his world watching TV, you know, watching a movie. And I don't need to pick up anything. It's important to you have to say, I don't want to pick up anything I don't need. So I do this thing. And then after about 5 minutes, I'm thinking, oh my God, because I'm breathing like him and sitting like I'm connected so deeply into his beingness that I can sense there's just him and the TV in the room. Everything else is blanked out. So what I gained from that experience was the fact that, you know, when I start communicating or saying things, no wonder he doesn't like it, because he's in the zone of the TV in this movie. Yeah. And I can't do it. If I'm breathing like me watching the movie, I can't stop talking because I'm being me, extrovert, asking questions. But when you connect with somebody in their world and their beingness through this breath and, you know, this mirroring type thing, it's a total different, and you can understand things, and unconsciously you'll be picking up things about that individual. So this is why it's really important to do at the dinner table with your children, just to notice what's going on. Anyway, the following morning, we're in the kitchen and he's going, oh, shall I do the ironing? And I was like, he's never done the ironing before, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I haven't done anything nice or whatever. Why is he asking? So in my mind, so I was curious, and I said to myself, what was different? What did I do different that he's asked to do the ironing? The only thing I've done different is the day before I sat there mirroring him. And so I respected him in his silence with the movie. And so unconsciously he picked it up. He's picked up that I'm different, and then ends up asking whether I want to do the ironing. So I'm just telling you this powerful stuff because I did it with his father-in-law. Again, father-in-law, he was sat here and I was sat here, and I thought, I'm going to go and I'm not going to talk. And he, his father-in-law, because he was, you know, he's on his own, you know, mother-in-law passed away. He liked to talk because he didn't see people for a long time, or, you know, for lots of time. So he just liked to talk. In my world, right, Atiya being Atiya, while he's talking, I'd ask a question, because in my world, I'm thinking, oh, so that he knows that I'm listening and I'm asking it, I'm curious about his world. He didn't like that, right? So anyway, so I do this mirroring, and he was talking to his son over there, my husband. And then as I was mirroring, I did something slightly different, crossover matching, because you don't want to mirror in front of them. You can do this thing which is opposite. So when he was moving his hands, I was moving my toes in my feet at the same level or time he was doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, what happened was, curiously, he starts talking to me, not his son. And I thought, uh-oh. And then I tried it at a dinner party somewhere else with other people, and the guy was talking. I thought, oh, he's not looking at me. Let me mirror his movement. And then he started looking at me as he's talking. So, but anyway, going back to the father-in-law. So that my husband and my father-in-law talked to each other each week, and that week we went on the Saturday. So the following Saturday, husband was talking to him, checking up on things, and my father-in-law, without him saying anything, I don't know what happened, but me and Atiya got on really well last week. Yeah. So what happened is because I didn't say anything, I stopped being me in my beingness, and I connected in his beingness, which meant I was being him. I was respecting him. So this is when you talk about love language, or love, to me, it's when you can respect somebody else's world and connect with them in their beingness. Temporarily, I'm not saying do it all the time, temporarily, just because you're curious to know what it's like for the other person in their world. It stops you from being you when you're, you know, when you can wind people up, if you like.
Oh, Wow, what a powerful share. Something that can be quite subtle to do can
Absolutely.
have such a profound effect. I will be I'll be doing that technique. People might be like, you're copying me. No, no, very subtle. But I do absolutely love that share. It sounds like it's got such a powerful effect.
But
So
warning, intention setting about you're curious, and secondly, to use it with integrity. And the second bit is making sure that you say, I don't need to pick up anything I don't want to know. Because
yes.
when you're connected so deeply, if they have illnesses or things, you can pick up, there's an unconscious thing that goes on that you can connect that illness bit, which is not what you want. So you want to connect with, whatever specifically you want to learn or whatever it is. So for me, I just said, I'm curious about what is it like my husband watching TV. But the unintended consequence of it was unconsciously, he picks up the fact that Atiya's not Atiya.
Yeah.
She's respected me in my, he won't use those words, but
no, yeah.
But what I'm saying is just watch out, because I said I'm curious, your brain signal and is looking for what's going on, and then it gives you the signals that, anyway, I'll stop.
Yeah.
So I'm very passionate about it. But it's a big nugget for everybody who's listening.
It's a massive nugget. And I like the way that you give that disclaimer at the end, just to use it with integrity and be very intentional.
Absolutely.
Which is absolutely amazing. Karen, Atiya, I have absolutely loved this conversation. We are bringing the conversation to a close now. You've shared so much that I know that parents will pick up on. People maybe plan on being a parent, they're curious about it. Absolutely amazing. And also thank you for sharing your personal experiences too when it comes to love and relationships. People will definitely learn from that. I would be absolutely honored if you could leave our listeners with one key takeaway to help them on their journey of love, life, and relationships.
So I think my one takeaway. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So for me, I would just say, as an individual, you hold your value system and connect with somebody with the same value system. If they've got different ones, that's fine. But notice what you want, and also put down what you don't want. What are you not prepared to put in terms of relationship is my biggest thing.
Okay, thank you. And Karen?
I think it's so important to learn the secrets to connect. Once you learn how to connect and you have that collaborative, like it's a team effort, whether it's a family or just a couple. And if you have that commitment and connection, magic can happen.
The magic can happen. Thank you so much for those takeaways. And where can the listeners reach out to you? Where are you hanging about if they want to connect with you and find out more about the amazing stuff that you do?
Atiya, you can go first.
Okay, so I've got my own Instagram account, Atiya C. Green. We've got a joint Facebook group called Unlocking Imagination, Super Smart Parenting. So if anybody wants to join the group, we go live every Wednesday to give some hot tips and discuss their challenges and stuff, so they can join us there. So yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, the usual feeds. I'm not so prevalent on TikTok, but yeah. So so join us, and if you've loved this, then we do some longer sessions, and so we can, if they want to sign up to, say, the language pattern quiz or one of Karen's quizzes, then we got their email addresses and we can keep sending them information if you're curious for further learnings from us.
Brilliant. And yourself, Karen?
I'm on Instagram, Karen Casey Gibson. I also have all 100 parenting tips, the 100 parenting tips. They're all on TikTok, all 100. I did it on Facebook. I did it on Instagram, Letting Go with Aloha on TikTok. And I also have a website, lettinggowithaloha.com. And you can find me. And I think we encourage everyone to join our Facebook group.
Brilliant. Thank you for the shares. And I will be dropping some links also in the show notes so that you are able to reach out to them easily and effortlessly there. Again, Karen, Atiya, thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation today. I know that the listeners are going to benefit so much from it. So thank you again. And everybody, thank you. And for everybody who has listened to this wonderful episode, I want to thank you for your time, for your attention, and for your energy. And until the next episode, take great care of yourself and others too.